just switch to the English one. I think the subtitles will help out. Let's just drop in. Hi, Andreas.
Yeah, hi, Ilya. Thanks for inviting me.
I think we can just start with maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. I don't know how comfortable you feel about talking about yourself. But yeah, I'm curious. I was very curious about your path. This is the reason why I reached out to you. And yeah, maybe you can share me a little bit about the background, how you came into the position you came to. So maybe a few steps, if you don't mind. And I do know, because we had a little talk before, that was not the most usual path. So there was a little bit, let's say, a little detour. So yeah, just tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, happy to. I guess there's no norm careers anymore these days. So everyone has kind of a unique way of getting where they are at the moment. So I'm currently working at Intrinsic, an alphabet company that is democratizing access to robotics by building basically a vendor agnostic software platform. Mm-hmm. And and the important point there is robotics. I think that is what keeps my past 15 years together in all different kinds of roles and positions, from academic research to founding a startup to working at an established European corporation to now working for one of the US tech companies. And I basically always followed what I thought is interesting in robotics, where I could learn something new. And robotics is really what integrates kind of my path of the past 10, 15 years, starting from the later stages of my undergraduate studies.
You did your undergrades where?
In Karlsruhe, Germany, at the KIT. Or actually, I still started at the University of Karlsruhe, which then became the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, the KIT. And originally, I went into studying computer science with the aim of going towards operating systems and computer security. So I had been doing some open source development in the OpenBSD community that has a strong focus on security. Most people will know OpenBSD for OpenSSH and a few other important, let's say, open source software solutions that keep the internet running. And basically, I kept at it, shifted a bit more into algorithms and software engineering, programming paradigms in the middle part. I did a lot of tutoring, and then took a sharp turn, basically in the second half, or even a bit later. So in the Hauptdiplom, so I was not yet bachelor master, but still the German diploma system. So basically, I think 2 years before finishing, there was a day of the Open Door lab tour or through all the different institutes. One of those were of course also the robotic institutes. And I saw something in one of their labs, which was swarm robotics. So a large number, I think about 50 small robots, like, 5 centimeters in diameter, with 2 wheels and a lot of blinking LEDs, running around and sorting Duplo blocks, like, the big version of Legos. And I found it so interesting when the PhD student whose EU project it was explaining how distributed algorithms come together with like these embodied or how they become embodied by running those algorithms on these swarm robots. And this encounter of software that I had been working with already since many years, with more the mechatronical side or the physical product side of things, that really got me hooked to robotics. And then I switched my major into robotics, and I continued a bit on the algorithm side, but mostly went into robotics. I took mechatronics as a minor, and also got more interested in the mechanical and electrical side of it.
And sorry for interrupting, but I remember that recently I see more and more people sharing their stories on Twitter and other social media platforms. And it's always interesting to see this kind of pictures, like in a university. And nowadays, people are more and more showing these kind of things, right? But we're talking here about 10, 15 years ago. So I just assume that there is not too many people taking pictures or selfies. So I think we are almost kind of same age, and there might be someone walking around with a camera, but not naturally as everyone is doing these days, right? So
exactly.
have you had, because that is always interesting to see those old kind of pictures or videos of yourself. It would have been interesting if you see this lab with those, you said like 50 little robots. And I don't know if that was somehow documented and showed, because nowadays everything gets documented and showed and shared. So just out of curiosity, I would have, if I would be you, I would be interested in if there's anything, because it was quite a special moment for you. You said you got
exactly
on that specific day. So if you wouldn't have gone into that lab and maybe you would have gone that down that path. So I don't know, maybe you are still in contact with some of these people, and maybe there was a camera around. That would be very interesting to see one of those pictures.
Yeah, I think there's a video. There might even be one somewhere in the depths of YouTube. I can search whether I can find the link, and perhaps you can add it. You know, whether if you add some show notes or other notes to this interview, then happy to provide you a link.
When would this be, the day you were talking about? So which year was that?
So I guess that was perhaps around 2009, roughly in that time frame, 2009, 2010. And so, yeah, you know, smartphones were still around. The iPhone was introduced in 2007, but I'm not sure, perhaps I had my first one at that time, but the cameras were still, you know, very basic. People just didn't take pictures and videos of everything just out of habit yet, even if they would had them in their pocket already. So I know we had the camcorder. I don't know, you know, a lot of people will not remember what a camcorder is anymore. It was a dedicated device to take videos. And yeah, we definitely took some due to also dissemination of the research project results. But research was not that published and polished for publication yet. Like right now, anytime you see a major robotics lab doing something interesting, you know, they will create a website with videos and a lot of like media content around it. It was rare. There, of course, always have been the video supplements that you submitted to the big conferences along with the paper. But that was about it, and you didn't do all the media and publishing around it. And also, there was no Archive X yet, so people actually waited for conference proceedings to come out. You know, it sounds like we're talking about 50 years ago, but it's actually not that long ago. Things have changed. Thinking about it,
yeah. I mean, I'm using these websites to find interesting shares. So I'm on those websites, and as you said, a lot of labs have their dedicated project sites. So and you can subscribe to them, so you get a notification when there's something new coming out. And yeah, I think it's interesting because on one side it gets much more exposure, and you get connected to people that are working on the same things much more easily, which is sometimes can be an accelerator, because if you're deciding to see someone and then approaching them, because people are very open, right? The majority of people, and especially if there's no industry involved or NDA involved, and so how are you doing this, or how are you doing this? There's a problem. And so I think even though I'm not very deep into research myself, so this is just an outside point of view. I would like to hear your opinion about this. So, do you think it's a change for the better?
Yeah, I think in general it's a change for the better if you look at the larger world and not just at academia itself. There, of course, it creates additional pressure on the students to not only do the proper research, write it up in a good way, but then also having to do some video recording and video editing, and perhaps do it at the quite professional level. Of course, also the tooling and everything got better, and it has become much easier and quicker to do it. but it does add some additional work, which is of course not of a scientific nature. But on the other hand, looking at the general population, it is important that academia and research also communicates what they are doing, why they are doing it, especially in the context of robotics. There's always, whenever there's a news article about some breakthrough in robotics or some new robots that become available, or new robotics startups or anything around robotics, of course, some of the comments will refer to kind of the, I would say, the Hollywood side of robotics or the sci-fi side of robotics, or fears and doubts around the field. And a lot of them would be, let's say, they would be less present in people's minds if, in addition to thinking about what they read in books, see in movies, they will also from time to time come across the actual research, the actual state of the art, to understand what robotics is about, how it works, what the challenges are, what the capabilities are as of today, so that not everyone directly jumps to the conclusion, oh, it looks like a humanoid robot, so it looks human-like, so it must be intelligent also, or have general AI in it. So yeah, I think it's good both within the field. Also, it adds this additional work. But mostly it's easier to consume by the general public than reading papers with a lot of Greek symbols in them.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I would like to come to the robot part in a second. Maybe if you would like to share something about this. I do know when I was at university studying mechanical engineering, that a lot of people were aiming for. So this is Berlin, TU Berlin. There were a lot of people trying to enter the industry and get a job afterwards at the big companies. So the usual suspects, so to speak. And I do know that you made the step and crossed the ocean. So if you would like to, I'm interested in that topic myself. So maybe you can share a little bit how this came together, because it's not that the usual part. I mean, Germans are everywhere, but maybe you can say a little bit about this.
Yeah, happy to. So basically, after finishing my undergraduate studies in computer science with a focus on robotics, and also doing something in parallel on philosophy, so actually I have a bachelor's in that. I continued doing a PhD in surgical robotics, kind of at the intersection between machine learning and robotics. Mostly still using classical methods. Deep learning, the hype really took off with the AlexNet moment in 2012. And so anyway, but machine learning and robotics, but in the context of surgery, so in the medical domain, which was really interesting from a working interdisciplinary point of view. Then actually during the final months of my graduate studies, I was presenting a paper at the conference and got in touch with someone from Google back in the day. They had started acquiring a number of robotics companies, Boston Dynamics perhaps being the most well-known one of them. And that all started, I think, in the 2012-2013 timeframe. And in 2015, then I joined as a PhD intern this team that was formed from the acquired robotics companies, together with a lot of Google engineers, and worked there for 3 months, which was a really exciting time. I can talk about one aspect of it because we published a paper which was about doing large-scale simulation. Google had already the worldwide data center infrastructure back then. It was not yet that accessible to the general public as cloud services are today. So of course, one could make use of them much more easily internally. And we were basically looking how one can make physics simulation of robots more accurate by automatically learning the right parameters for a physics engine, without going into the weeds here. But that's what was one of the projects I was working on, and it was really exciting. I met a lot of great people, and thankful to them for I think it really pushed my software engineering skills and also my robotics skills to an entirely new level, working there for a few months. And then something perhaps uncommon happened. I got the option to stay there permanently as a full-time employee and really relocate to the Bay Area.
Oof.
But I decided to come back to Germany to found a robotics startup together with two colleagues from my institute in Karlsruhe, because we already had that idea basically before I went. And I'm sure things would have turned out differently if I would have taken that path in the road. But you cannot fork yourself, so you need to decide to go left or right. Wasn't an easy decision.
I was about to ask if that was, because I think a lot of people are now, I don't know if a lot of people are seeing this, but I can just imagine that thinking about, you had the opportunity to work there as a full-time employee, especially as a German person in the US for one of those big US companies, and you decided, especially as the numbers are well known, how risky it is to open your own business, right? And but please continue. That is interesting that you took the decision.
Yeah, and of course the risk is very real. A few years later, I can say now. So we didn't do a successful exit. We ran a quite successful company, I would say, for a few years. Getting from 3 people in a university basement to 25 people, and actually deploying quite a number of production systems in the harsh realities of industrial automation or in an industrial manufacturing environment. Some of them are still running. Actually, I got the message today from someone that is asking for replacement parts. Unfortunately, the company doesn't exist anymore since end of 2020. So yeah, it was taking a big risk, and the risk materialized. Still, I don't regret taking that path, because there's, of course, there's a financial aspect to it, but of course there's also a personal growth aspect to taking different paths. And I would have grown in different ways would I have stayed at Google at the time. It would have been perhaps financially more rewarding to do so, also given how things turn out. Yet at the same time, the breadth of topics and skills and people I worked with during running a startup for nearly 4 years is much wider than going through the different ranks of a software engineer. You also then have to set up a sales team. You have to take care of accounting. You hire people. You have to let people go. You do fundraising with venture capital and all of those things. So it's less, perhaps my pure technological skills might have actually progressed faster, especially the software engineering related ones. But overall, I think it was a great experience, really seeing how a company operates. Just the pure fact of that you have a gut feeling for you need to earn the money you are spending, including your own salary, gives you a change of perspective. If you're working for a big corporation, that's a very abstract concept. Of course, everyone knows that the company needs to make money and be profitable, and so that it can pay everyone's salary and invest into the technology of tomorrow. But it becomes much more real when you see the bank account balance each and every day.
This is so fascinating, especially as I am working for a startup now, and coming from corporate, I do know the two worlds and how different they are structured, right? And the position that you are in and the responsibility that comes with it, right? Because when you are working for a corporate, there's a very specific sheet of what are your responsibilities and what skills are needed for that specific role, and you are much more like a wheel in a bigger engine, right? And when it comes to working in a startup, it's always less people doing more things. So you have people that you just said it, right? In the early beginnings of a startup, you do need to have marketing and sales and accounting, but in a rudiment, in a very element basic way. And but as more successful as you become, so from an entrepreneurial point of view, you're saying you have now a much wider idea about how business works in general, and that especially for people that are working in product, because I see this very often. People that are working in product sometimes don't have the closeness to the customer and so I think it's very interesting to see that you have seen now both sides. And so you said,
and I think customer focus is really an important aspect that you mentioned there with looking on the product side of things. So I would say I'm still mostly motivated from a technology push point of view, but at least I have much more awareness about, customer needs, requirements. What is the real value proposition behind the cool technology you're driving forward? Because for me, in terms of personal motivation, it might be an end in itself to develop the next generation of robotics technologies, or at least contribute my small part on the shoulders of the giants that have been there before and that will come after. But from a business point of view, of course, it's different. There, the cool technology might be less important than having a good user experience, for example. And what you're saying is absolutely correct. When you run your own startup or you're part of an early stage startup, it's the primordial chaos. There's no processes yet. Nobody knows what to do, how to behave. There's just no routine. It's this typical going from 0 to 1 versus going from 1 to 100. And well, it does have its upsides and downsides, but it's what is sure, it is a different experience. And also then having, after leaving the startup, joined a European, very internationally oriented but European company, ABB Robotics, and now kind of having gone back to one of the US tech companies or subsidiary of them. Each kind of company is unique, and also different kinds of companies, academic institutions, research institutions, startups, SMEs, European corporations, US corporations. They all have their own culture and ways of handling things. And I can really recommend to everyone, in whatever sequence matches your, matches the opportunities that are available, to see different parts of it, to not just do startups or just do big corporations, or stay in university forever. Well, if that's really what makes you happy, of course there's nothing bad about it, but I feel that it benefits one to see these different kinds of different parts of the economy in the end of the day, even if it's within the same field, such as robotics for myself.
I mean, as you said, sometimes you do something and that it sparks something else. You haven't even thought about it yet. Coming to an end, just yesterday, I think it was the publication, they launched, so this is Apptronic, a US company. They just launched Apollo. So we were talking about robotics, and the field I'm working in, there's a lot of robotic or robots in the industry, so in the industrial robots. So, but yesterday the launch was of a humanoid robot, and I'm a huge fan of that. This is something that really interests me, because that closes the gap. Because a lot of people know that how cars are made, have a general idea about it. But now, as AI and robots are coming towards the mainstream and knocking on our door, that is very interesting, especially as we don't know where it leads to. And maybe you have a few thoughts on that. I would be interested in.
Yeah, that's something I hadn't expected at all. This current new wave or next wave of humanoid robots. So, coming back to the beginning of our discussion here, at KIT, there's one very well-known professor, Tamim Asfour, in the area of humanoids, and also kind of a former one, Rüdiger Dillmann. They are both pioneers in the area of humanoids. Globally recognized for it. And I was always very interested in the research they are doing. It's fascinating to watch. The robot is called Amar, trying to clean up the kitchen or assist in other tasks around the home environment. but to me, it always felt like great research, but still, very far out from this becomes a product, mostly due to the economics of it. Not, of course, there's also a lot of that needs to be figured out in terms of algorithms, especially perception, manipulation, learning, and reasoning. But mostly from a unit economic point of view, those research robots, are on the order of $500,000 a piece. And that's much more expensive than a car, and cars are usually one of the most expensive items any family owns, apart from perhaps their home. So if we could get humanoid robots or home assistant robots really down to the price of a small car, I think it could become possible for them to be successful in that domain. Now, it's not only Apptronic, but quite a few others that came out within the last 2 years. Tesla starting it out with the Tesla bot, or Optimus as it is called, and a lot of companies are getting to a price point of 20 to 30K per robot. If that ever gets down there, I will definitely buy one, even if it's just for my own home robot lab that doesn't have a humanoid yet, for obvious reasons. So I think it's exciting. It's exciting times to be in robotics overall. No matter whether it's the humanoid form factor that will become present in everyday life within the next 5 to 10 years, or whether it will take longer. The technologies being developed there can also be utilized in more traditional industrial manipulator arms. They can be used with wheeled robots like delivery robots or warehouse robots, even drones. So the field of robotics is very diverse when you look at the embodiment of the methods and the algorithms. An industrial manipulator is quite different from a humanoid, from a flying drone or a swimming submarine. But the methods, if you look at the methods, they are have a large overlap between those different types of robots. And so more dollars into robotics, both in academia and now also in the private industry, will definitely advance the field as a whole. So I would love to see humanoids around. I would love to be able actually to do my own research on humanoids, be it at work or just in my spare time, if the price comes down for the latter. So yeah, it's exciting times. Of course, there is an aspect of hype to it. One cannot look away from the explosion within such a short time frame. Is also somewhat driven by venture funds, and sometimes they create bubbles. But overall, I'm quite optimistic about it.
I mean, I think we both were at the Automatica, an automation fair here in Berlin, and we had I think it was a sneak peek from Neuro Robotics towards their humanoid robot. And you mentioned other ones. We have Sanctuary AI in Canada. We have AX in Norway. So there are a few companies figure. I think they just raised 2-digit million number. And yeah, there's a few companies.
There's Agility Robotics with Digit, talking about digits.
Yeah, definitely Digit. I think there's an ethical aspect on it, and maybe I can convince you for a second round, because this is, I think, enough for today. I hope we were able to speak about a few things that might interest one or two persons. So maybe we can talk about this, the ethical aspect on AI and robotics, especially in our society today and in the future, for another meeting. And yeah, I would be glad to have you again. So
yeah, same.
I was glad having you. Thank you for taking the time. And yeah, maybe you would like to say something for the end. I'm not very good at these kind of things.
Yeah, I'm happy to pitch the book I'm currently working on. It's called Robotics for Programmers, and I try to educate, of course, also those that want to transition from pure software work into robotics. It mirrors a bit my own personal journey, but of course much more streamlined. So it hopefully won't take 10 plus years to read through the book, but Yeah, I feel with robotics growing as a field, and of course, robotics has since the very beginning included many aspects of AI as well. There, even if you're a good software developer, if you're a good programmer, you still need domain knowledge. You need the base understanding about the methods, the algorithms, the approaches, the methods. And so that's what I'm trying to write an accessible book about that does include math, but it actually introduces the math and doesn't assume everyone has a has a graduate degree in algebra so that they can start reading it. So yeah, perhaps let me end with that pitch.
Is there a due date? Is there
it's already available in form of early access program. So you can it's published in the with Manning, and they run a program which is a bit reminding of kind of the open source credo, publish early or release early, release often. So since the first 3 chapters were complete, you can buy it and you get what is available right now. And then it is incrementally updated when I have a chapter done and the editor has done quality control on it, it is published. And once the whole book is finished, then you get your PDF or the printed book, depending on what you picked. And right now I'm about in the middle. I want to pick up speed again and get it done by perhaps end of Q1 next year. But I fingers crossed. Let's see what keeps me from it.
Yeah, I think this is a very good note to end. I think I will be able to share the link later on. So thanks for taking the time. Today's Friday, so I wish you a very nice weekend.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.